the channels. So I mean, I think I need more study to kind of differentiate between the Levy's point and my point. But I think I will take a look at more in detail for further explanations. Hopefully, it should be answered from your question. Thank you.
Anna, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for your paper one. I have a question a little bit relating to your data and your methodology. You survey 6 years or 7 years even. I just wonder how do you attempt to measure a development within that period, or you know, is it possible to survey a development?
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. About you're talking about the semantic network throughout the years possible. We can kind of chop it down as a terminology. But I think is framing the period. I think we need to find out some history-making event. But I think the EU-Asia connectivity is a new initiative after in 2018. I think we can kind of briefly chop it down before connectivity, so a period of ASEM connectivity, and after 2018 will be EU connectivity. I think we can compare that about the semantic networks to how these framework has been changed, and could be kind of the more doable changes. So thank you very much, Anna. So yeah, I would apply your comment.
Colleagues, further comments or questions? So I have one question. If you take a look at the period of data collection, it's January 2014 to March 2020. And the Europe-Asia connectivity was announced in September 2018. And we can understand that in the year 2019, the policy activities to promote this initiative from the European Union might have been the strongest, and it's well documented in the high number of policy documents or policy announcements made in the year 2019, 46. But I wonder, what did the European Union do? I mean, the three institutions, Council, Parliament, and Commission do in the first 3 months of this year. I mean, because you collected data for the 3 months of this year, and there were only 2 counts. Whereas the monthly average for 2019 was about 4, right? But in the entire 3 months, from January, February, March, there were only 2 counts. So it's a really very small and very shrinked activity. Was it influenced by COVID-19?
Okay. It's really kind of becoming the buzzword of these days, and due to the coronavirus. So I think when we, I had the very lucky enough to have a presentation on EU disinformation regarding the COVID-19. So actually the EU used its resources to tackle with the coronavirus in terms of the fundings, and also the European people in the European Commission, they kind of presented how they support the vaccines and all others. I think it's these manpower shifted to deal with the crisis management. So I think the Europe-Asia connectivity kind of pushed a little bit sideways than the connectivity seems like. But I cannot tell you at the moment, Professor Park. If I collect more data up to January this year, then our assumption can be more clarified. So if it's kind of about 20 papers or less, then we can conclude it is possibly because of the coronavirus. So actually every policy,
so because you have already your presentation at hand now, could you show the semantic network?
Okay.
So you had 90 counts, right? And how can you explain this semantic network? Because I would be quite interested in interpreting this semantic network you have presented now.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Park. So semantic network analysis is talking about the groupings of the certain words and salient within the text. But we don't have enough time to read all of the data. So actually the using program, we can summarize the interconnection of the word. We can make the groupings and show in the kind of the semantic network as a snapshot of the whole papers we read. And also, when we deal with some explanations, then I'm going to show you these groupings.
What I mean is, Sewon, what I mean is, if you pick up one area here, colored green, EU-Japan cooperation, for instance, right? It's second from the top left, EU-Japan cooperation. And it's taking quite relatively big space. And it's much more space, taking much more space than other things on the right-hand side. So what does this mean, and how we can interpret that?
Okay, and so when we have the bigger areas, that means more words are connected according to the analytic software. And also on the right-hand side, you see there are some words of some dates, and also some connection between the word pairings. So actually they are not connected with each other. So actually these are the minor framings, I would tell you. And also this is kind of the more bigger framings in EU-Japan cooperation. As Lewy papers at the end, then she mentioned the EU tried to have the cooperation with Japan in light of the connectivity. So I think they were kind of the more mentioned in the light of the ASEM here, that when you look at the core of the semantic network of the EU-Japan cooperation, you can see the ASEM. And also they consider European unions have the interaction with the minister, and also have some partners with the partnership between the European Union and Japan. And also Abe Shinzo was mentioned in the text. So actually we can say the main actors within specific areas of the framings. Then I think I can explain by the elements of the narratives. So who are the actors, what are the events, and how actions were taken. So I think we can approach one by one by talking about the narrative. So what type of the narratives were mentioned. And also I go into my data set to cite again of which specific policy paper were used in my data set. So I'm going to quote that accordingly. So
if you go to the left, you have a reflection paper towards a sustainable Europe by 2030. And how do you compare these two? I mean, in terms of the policy activity on EU-Asia connectivity. So is it the size that matters, or the connections, links of the words? And I would be very curious how you can draw some implications from this network analysis.
Okay. Thank you very much. The areas of the semantic network totally depends on how many words are connected in a cluster. So it means a bigger area, that means have a possibility of have more connections, and also number of the word pairs are guaranteed according to this this area. So at least I can tell, at the moment I can tell you that the areas that usually say the main theme, so salient theme throughout all the policy paper used in the, put in the analytic software. And also when we think about these events one by one, then we cannot kind of, in order to explain more about the importance within the frames, I think I can add some values like the weight, weight values which automatically calculated from the software that we can provide.
My question, yes, my question and comment is, are you confident enough to draw enough implications, substantive implications from this analysis?
In order to do that,
I mean, what I mean is, if this chart figure stands alone, that's meaningless, right? So you have to be able to draw some implications for the connectivity issue. And is this methodology guaranteeing that?
Okay, thank you very much. So in order to supplement the explanation on the semantic network, so I would like to use the framing analysis supported, the qualitative analysis should go together. So to explain the significance of these framings. So if I kind of use semantic network alone, as you mentioned, it will not be kind of the significant. So in order to supplement the semantic network, then I can do, I would like to add two different type of the analysis attached to this semantic network: framings and narrative analysis. So it is not kind of the standalone basis. I will add qualitative analysis to make it flourish.
So okay, friends, please understand this was the questions sent by very beginner for this kind of analysis. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Right. If based on our schedule, we could have now some break of about 15 minutes. Do you agree? 15 minutes, and let's meet again at 6:30 in Korea, and 6:20 in Korea, and 10:20 in Europe. Is it okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I have to leave now.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Hope to see you next year.
Yeah, thank you. And we hope, we pretty much hope we can see offline, right?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Mireya. How are you? Safe? I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Fine. How are you?
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, you safe and sound in Europe?
I am safe, me particularly, yeah.
Are you particularly?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have several members in the hospital right now for COVID.
So
but they're in Spain, they're not in Germany, right?
Oh, okay, not in Germany. You're in Spain?
No, I'm in Germany. I mean.
Okay, well, Spain is. Yeah, Spain is relatively dangerous. Okay, so Germany is fine now. So I heard the UK approved the COVID-19 vaccine from Pfizer. Well, still have
we'll see.
Still good enough.
Yeah, we'll see how it works on that.
We also having 500 a day. 500 confirmed case a day.
It's quite much in Korean standard.
Yes.
Because
so how are you there? Low. Oh, yeah, lower than other countries. Yes, indeed. But it's winter as well, so I have the flu jab. Yeah, just in case. But it's not going to be that safe. But better stay at home. Staying at home is best policy.
Yeah.
Professor Lee, you must be in your office.
Yeah, actually, I'm self-quarantined in my office.
Oh my God!
In a sense, yeah. So,
So yeah, it's really. You also presenting tomorrow for someday later, or for the next different conference.
I mean,
I think GSIS conference seems like, and
actually we have a launching BK21 conference on Friday.
Friday, okay.
Yeah, but actually, whether you believe it or not, this week is very unusual, kind of 5 days straight webinar week. I'm making 4 presentations, so I'm really wondering what is really happening.
Whether you also have a very unexpected schedule clash.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. So I really have to survive this week. Yes. So COVID-19 is yes, certainly that is scary, but this week's schedule is even more scary to me.
You need to face the 2 threatening factors: COVID and full busy schedule.
So yeah. Hopefully I could avoid those 2 ballistic missiles and have to find the good balance of working and life as well at some point this month.
Okay.
So friends, can we restart now? I'd like to propose that we have 4 papers remaining. Anna and Charles' paper first, and Professor Lee's paper second. And third is Mireya's, and number 4 is Lublin paper. Probably we can do 2 papers, and then probably after presentation of 2 papers, then we collect our comments and questions, right? So that could be a way to save some time, because if we start commenting on the first paper and then second paper, then probably third and fourth paper would have very little time for discussion. So I'd like to propose Anna, Charles, and Professor Lee present their papers, and then we have a discussion, and then move over to other 2 papers and discussion, and then relatively big break for coffee. Okay? So Anna, are you ready?
Yes, and I think Charles is ready as well. I will,
okay, Charles.
I will open, I will share our presentation here on the screen. Okay. Yeah. All right. I think this will do. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to present our paper and also to writing this paper, which is very interesting for both of us. We have thought a little bit about how to frame the paper and come more and more towards the perspective of actually looking into the EU's sustainability or global sustainability leadership. One that the EU has had for quite some time and that Charles has done quite a lot of research on in other sort of fora than the EU-Asia connectivity strategy. But we have now the idea to apply this kind of typology of leadership and see how far actually this connectivity strategy can let's say, can help the EU to exert some sort of sustainability leadership in Asia, and Asia seen in a wide perspective. So just to start, let's see here. So talking about the EU as a global leader in sustainability, so I'm sure that this is one of the things that you have already heard, and that is quite sort of widely recognized. And research that Charles with others have done has sort of, let's say, has cemented the idea that the EU, or cemented the proof, if you like, that the EU is seen by itself and also by others as a global sustainability leader. And Charles can talk more about that research if he wants to. Then we should also think a little bit about how the EU is approaching sustainability. And that has evolved, I think, since Rio, Paris, and so on. And now we see that the EU has sort of, let's say, minted or coined a perspective that's very broad on sustainability. It sees it as more than just an environmental policy or measures towards fighting climate change, much more in the sense of really what the world needs and the Europe needs in ways of sustainable development. So that's why it's more and more concentrating on both economic and social. And we see that very clearly in this this new drive of the EU, the European Green Deal, which was launched last year, but which is now actually taking shape in the sense that the EU is coming towards an agreement on the budgetary, on its financial framework, and then the EU budget, and also how to apply, you know, how to find financial resources to help the countries that have been hardest hit by the pandemic, by basically going out on the international market and taking up loans. So we see that the EU is becoming much more ambitious when it comes to this transformative, let's say, approach, which is it sees really in the terms of sustainable development and sustainability. So here, in general, and also in the strategy towards Asia, sustainability is both a norm, if you like, and it's also in a way a programmatic goal, both for itself in the European Green Deal and also for the sustainable development goals of the UN. So how we now imagine the aim of the paper, and also I should say that we are going to rewrite the paper from this perspective going forward, is to see how the EU, you know, basically from what it's done before, but with the boost of the European Green Deal, what it now needs to do globally in order to sort of you know, achieve its own goals, but also the global goals that it set up for itself in the realm of sustainability. And we also see that it needs to find a way to bring in this broader take of sustainability into the different partnerships and the different sort of ways it's approaching its partners, globally and also in the connectivity strategy to find, let's say, an agreement on the sort of broad take on sustainability and to cement these ideas. And the research question for this particular paper will be to what extent the EU Asia connectivity strategy can serve as a platform for the EU to drive this kind of, let's say, sustainability, global sustainability leadership forwards. What can the different parts of this strategy help the EU to also, you know, apply its leadership typology? And here I will give the floor to Charles, who is much more knowledgeable than I am on the global leadership in sustainability.
Okay, so why the need for EU leadership? And first, our definition of leadership is just a very simple one: relationship of influence, where an actor attempts to guide the behavior of others, excuse me, for a purpose. And we can see that the EU in various ways really tries to promote itself as a leading actor on the world stage. You can see this in its global strategy. You can see this in other issue areas such as climate change, that it's long tried to take a leading role. And of course, exercise of EU leadership, it serves multiple purposes for the EU's objectives: agenda setting, goal attainment, attempts to gain legitimacy for its ideas, attempts to mobilize followers. And this is one of so they attempt to do this for a number of purposes. So basically here we have a number of collective action goals that you can be seen as pursuing through this connectivity strategy. And this is a vehicle for trying to promote its own preferences, proposing solutions in particular areas of the connectivity strategy, whether we're talking about infrastructure, energy, and a variety of other issues that make up the strategy. And of course, EU tries to lead by example, and it likes to demonstrate that its proposed solutions actually work. And it tries to create certain incentives for doing so. So we have mapped out 4 different modes of leadership. Next slide, please, Adam. Thank you. That we're talking about in this paper: idea-based, directional, instrumental, and structural leadership. So idea-based leadership, sometimes people call it intellectual leadership. This is basically about the framing of particular issues and agenda setting efforts and proposing joint solutions for how these should work. And I mean, in general, the EU wants these rule-based multilateral arrangements, and that they should be sustainable and low carbon. And we see these types of goals being promoted in different areas, whether it's in the climate through the Paris Agreement, Sustainable Development Goals, or now in the EU Green Deal. Directional leadership, this is another favorite strategy of the EU, which is basically holding itself up as a model and then claiming that if others adopt its standards and practices, that this is the best way to govern in particular areas, and that the EU has already demonstrated in the internal market these are feasible. The EU very much likes to make this argument that they've already proven that it's possible to have sustainable economic growth, and they point to the statistics on how much they've managed to reduce greenhouse gases and at the same time grow their economy. And I think when you look at this sustainability strategy, you very much see idea-based and directional leadership as leading by example. Ideas are very much in the document. And I think the document sort of creates a platform for these other types of leadership, whether it's instrumental leadership, which is basically trying to act as a broker, bringing together stakeholders to facilitate different partnerships, whether it's in infrastructure or energy, are 2 prominent ones. And then, of course, finally, structural leadership, which is this resource-based leadership, where the EU tries to use financial tools, for example, energy and infrastructure investment, basically deploying power resources that create incentives for people putting into place its vision for how arrangements should look. Okay, back to you, Anna.
All right, so our two last slides here. The one I have up now is looking more directly at the EU Asia connectivity strategy. And here it's very clear that sustainability is one of the key dimensions. It seems to permeate all activities. And also when you look at more this sort of concrete, let's say, actions that the EU has taken towards partners, you see that sustainability is always mentioned, although in very different ways. And for the EU, it's very clear. It sees sustainability as a goal in itself. I mean, this is the sort of normative or programmatic dimension of sustainability. But it also sees it as a way of achieving good governance, and that is a very broad concept that the EU is using. So good governance, both in terms of political norms and also in terms of sort of how can you actually achieve in very concrete situations sustainable solutions, sustainable development. And here we see that the EU tries to promote various sets of standards, production and also consumption standards. And this is something we can see very much coming from the way in which the EU approach sustainable development within Europe. But we see two key problems here when it comes to the strategy itself. And one is that there are multiple objectives. I mean, sustainability might be sort of a key norm or key goal, but there are lots of different objectives when the EU approaches the different partners. And these objectives are playing out on very different levels. The various partnerships look very different. And the problem is if the sort of the big variation in the way in which the EU actually acts, if that is something that can actually reinforce its leadership, so it becomes more context, let's say context relevant, or is it actually counterproductive that the EU will look as a very different leader in different, vis-a-vis different partners. And then the partner countries themselves are at very different socioeconomic development. And that means that they themselves will have very different views of what sustainable development actually is and how urgent it is. And also they will also see maybe not sustainability as the most strategic goal to achieve, especially if we compare it to China's BRI, but that there are different ways in understanding their strategic outlooks. So looking a little bit at the empirics, which is not yet finalized in the paper, we looked at what kind of sort of partnerships the EU is creating with different countries. And I ordered them into, I think, 5 different groups, depending on, on their geographical location and also the way in which the EU itself is grouping these countries. And you can see that in the paper. We rewrite the empirical part. I think we can get quite a lot out of it, actually. But some primarily results we can point at. And the idea-based leadership of the EU when it comes to sustainability is recognized by everyone, I think, but it's only shared by some. So it's not that everyone will agree with the EU that sustainability is that important. When it comes to directional leadership, it also seems to be recognized, but it's contested. And ASEAN is contesting the EU's idea here very much. I mean, why should the ASEAN countries sort of emulate the EU's approach to sustainability? There seem to be some, let's say, some divergence of opinions. When it comes to instrumental, so building coalitions and alliances and so on, it seems to work well with equal partners, in particular Japan and South Korea, but not so well maybe with other countries. And then when it comes to the structural leadership, well, it remains to be seen, because here we think that the boost that the European Green Deal will give to the EU institutions, also in financial terms, will help the EU to maybe to exercise more and stronger structural leadership than it has before. And we can see that in particular in the partnership to the Central Asian republics. So I will stop here. I think I was already a little bit too long.
Thanks a lot, Anna and Charles. Thank you very much for your presentation. We directly move over to Professor Lee's presentation, and then after that we start our discussion. So Professor Lee, could you?
Yep. Thank you, Professor Park. And actually, I thought that I thought that it was a pretty good structure to have Anna's paper and my paper. Anna and Charles have dealt with the sustainability issues between EU-Asia connectivity, well, between EU and Asia. And I'm looking at the energy connectivity between EU and Northeast Asia, but from a more kind of the empirical, it's more kind of the case study driven approaches. So this kind of conceptual approach on sustainability and the more kind of empirical approach, well, hopefully could make some match. Let me also share my slides. So I think which one would be better? Yep, I'll try. No. So is it? So are you seeing the slide?
Yeah.
Okay. I need to move it to the screen and oh, hold a second. Just hold a second. Just I have to move it to this. A different. I'm using two monitors and somehow this one is not. I think it will be safer. Okay. Yeah, I think I can. Oh, sorry. In this case, I still think the earlier one is much better. Yes. Okay. All right. So, should I start?
Yes.
Okay, good. So my topic is energy connectivity between European Union and Northeast Asia, and I subtitled Energy Transition and Low Carbon Path. By this time last year, of course, I was hopeful, and we were all hopeful that we could have a meeting somewhere in Germany after the Stockholm meeting. But also, I was hopeful that the EU's connectivity connectivity initiative highlighted 4 areas. One was transportation, digital, energy, and people to people. So I actually expected more cases of energy connectivity and some infrastructure interconnection project would come out. But over 1 year, quite a lot of things have changed the context. And the biggest factor is the COVID-19. It virtually freezed the most of cross-border energy investments, especially energy infrastructure investment. So the few weeks ago, I actually changed the contents and well, I actually changed the direction of my paper from energy infrastructure interconnection that I have the plan 1 year ago to this energy transition and low carbon the path. And fortunately, yeah, during past 1 year, the big change, well, kind of the big have been made between Europe and also in Asian countries, Northeast Asian countries. European Union have introduced the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal, oops, and Asian countries, and Asian countries, three Northeast Asian countries, China, Japan, Korea, also adopted a net zero initiative, and that came out just few weeks and few months ago. So I thought that working on these initiatives of net zero means zero emission. The target it is very long-term target, 2050 and 2060, but this is a rare area currently, at least at the initiative level and rhetoric level. European Union and Northeast Asian countries are sharing their goal, and indeed China, Japan, Korea are very active. So this is not the relation is not about the energy aid or something. This is the competition, and actually which had a real substance. So my kind of the renew the flow and synopsis of paper is I would start from EU's Asia connectivity and in which highlighted the energy sector. So including a regional energy platform, modern energy system, and environmental friendly solution, and especially efficient cross-border connection, transportation, energy, digital, human network. And so I traced EU's potential energy, the connectivity agenda, but actually this was the only case I could find. Okay, so the tentative conclusion was the physical interconnection, actual interconnection of energy system can be considered only at the neighboring regions, mostly in Central Asia. And unfortunately, I didn't have lots of knowledge in this area. As well, it carries still a limited scale of feasibility. And nowadays, due to the pandemic situation and economic recession, uncertainties have grown. And it realistically, it inevitably overlaps with China's BRI project in Central Asia and Eastern neighborhood countries. So it will be actually much faster to trace China's BRI strategy than finding EU's connectivity project in this region. So that was the context I tried to focus the switch to the renewable and the green side. So I decided to focus on the renewed momentum of green energy transition in EU versus three Northeast Asian countries, the Green New Deal and Net Zero Plan, and China's low carbon development strategy in the next, the forthcoming 5-year national economic planning. Japan has announced a net zero emission, the Suga administration, a few weeks ago. And 2 days later, Korea also announced the net zero 2050 in addition to Green New Deal, which was announced a couple months ago. So by examining and by comparing these cases, these 4 different initiatives, 1 from Europe and 3 from Northeast Asia. This paper asked, will Asia be Europe's partner for green energy transition, and also will Europe be Asia's partner for green energy transition, and what are the conditions for EU Northeast Asia energy connectivity? Okay, so I will compare the similarities and differences, and also international context for green energy connectivity between EU and Northeast Asia, and the areas for potential cooperation, and opportunities and challenges of policy coordination. So it's a couple of years ago, in 2011 or 2012, at that time, Korea adopted the green growth, and there was another wave of green initiative in Northeast Asia. So I wrote a paper at that time, but 8 years later, 9 years later, well, we are in a quite different international context. So the EU announced the net zero pledge. So when we are tracing this pink line, then it is targeting the zero emission by 2050, okay? And it covers virtually every sector. And these are the ambitious goal of a European Green Deal, which was announced exactly 1 year ago, the December 2019. And in this, on the left-hand side, this is China's emission projection and forecasting. And well, China is trying to curb down the emission. Well, it may not decrease dramatically, but many scenarios are coming out. Japan and Korea's the investment scheme in the investment plan. So this table summarized that the China #1 emitter in the world, and Japan #4, South Korea #6, and Germany and EU, when it combined, it is another big emitter. So I think that the 4 cases will be quite relevant for this comparative analysis. So these are the table of contents. The introduction will clarify the structure and explain under the context. And then I will explain energy provider and energy, low carbon energy transition in Europe. And then the same analysis in Northeast Asia. And then comparative analysis between EU and Northeast Asia, the category I mentioned. And especially I will look at the Paris Agreement, the INDC, the national target, and recent initiative of Renewable Energy 100, RE100. This is the actually for the company level. So by examining this international context, not just domestic, I want to find out, well, as much as possible, the conditions, the possible condition, under which condition green energy connectivity could be galvanized between the EU and Northeast Asia. So I will conclude with some area for potential cooperation and opportunities and challenges of policy coordination. So this is the structure of my the paper. This was the planning, and I would be happy to get your comments and advice.